So I thought of a few things that might help us trying to remember, and these are personally for me, okay, some things that help me remember the good old days with Jesus and help me think forward to the things that are coming. First thing that we got to do is that you got to keep a journal, meaning that you have to record the things that happen in your life. So often, many of us, we forget instances because I think we just kind of enjoy it for the moment, and then, you know, like I said, the next thing comes up, and then we're so busy with life that we don't really have time to kind of record things. You know, when amazing things happen, whether I'm at a retreat or at a revival, or say I'm at a certain trip, whether it's, you know, for missions or just for pleasure or whatever it is, whether I'm out doing something, when God really strikes my heart, even as simple as when I watch a movie. One of the things that I used to love to do and I really thought was helpful for me was I would write about it. Okay? Now, back in the day, we had a social media called Zanga, right, that kind of allowed you to do that. Okay? We had this thing when I was going through college, and I actually used Zanga to do that. Every single moment that I felt like God did something amazing in my life, I would write about it. I would put it up. And you know, one of the things that I used to love is that I would go back like a year or 2 years in my entries, and I would just read. And it would bring back this flood of memories of all the different things that God showed me, all the convictions, all the things that God poured into my life, and I'm like, yes, I remember God, and I'm strengthened by it. You know, after a while, Zanga started to change into pictures, right? Because nobody wanted to read those things. Everyone wanted to see new pictures, okay? And then it went from everyone posting very deep thoughts, or some people posting not so deep thoughts, right? But anyway, people posting thoughts to pictures, because if you didn't have pictures, no one left you comments. Or no one ever looked at your page, okay? And then eventually, this guy named Mark Zuckerberg, he wised up and he said, hey, let's get rid of all that weird stuff and let's make everything faster, and he developed Facebook. Facebook is that. You put up pictures, you put up one-line blogs of what's going on in your life. Because why? No one wants to read long things. They just want the update of what's going on. It's called a status update. And no one will come to your page unless you do a status update. Because why? You become irrelevant. You must journal, whatever that looks, however that looks. Mark the ways that God has been faithful in your life. Remember those things. Keep reminders is another way. Sometimes when big events or certain really influential things happen to me, either it'll be a gift that someone's given me, or a little note card that someone has given me, or sometimes I will actually buy something from that event. But I always keep reminders. For example, this is a little note that I received from an anonymous person at a retreat that I was at, and I want to read it to you, okay? And I take this with me wherever I go, right? And the reason why I say this is because they didn't tell me who this person is. They didn't write who this is from, but it says, Pastor David Chang, I want to thank you in person, but somehow it's still difficult for me to talk to people. Coming to this retreat was completely unexpected. I honestly didn't even know there was a retreat until the day before. The reason I want to thank you is your seminar that you gave during the retreat. I know God made it so that I would come to this retreat at this exact time in my life to receive that message. The past couple of weeks have been some of the toughest during my struggles. I almost gave up the life God has blessed me with. I just wanted to thank you and tell you that a losing battle has been won. You know, when I receive these things, I don't even know who it's from, but I carry it around wherever I go in my Bible, because every single time I feel like, God, what am I doing? Am I having any influence in my life? I see this and I'm reminded. Not of my doing, but of God's faithfulness in my life. And I have things like this scattered all over my office, all over my room. Things that mean nothing to anybody else. Other people can come in and look at it and be like, what is this? Why do you have this junk? But to me, they're reminders. Little post-it notes. Little things to keep me remembering about God's faithfulness. Two more things. Share your stories with others. Right? Share your stories with others. When you have a God moment, when you have a God encountering moment, share them with somebody. Pick up a phone, write them an email, tell somebody, because you never know what that story is going to do for someone else. You know, I think so many of us, we're just like, nobody wants to hear what happens to my life and my stories unless I can put it in a one-sentence thing. I mean, who wants to really hear that? Who wants to have time? But the early church, when the church was first established, that's kind of the biggest part of the culture of the church, that people would share. They would share everything, meaning they would share food, they would share sleeping space, they would share their possessions. But the biggest thing that they would share is that they would share their lives and their stories that they brought together with one another. Whenever they had a prayer request, they would share with someone. They would say, hey, can you please pray for me? I'm going through this. And when those prayers were answered, they would come and they say, guess what? God answered this prayer. Can you tell that I'm excited? Can you tell how amazing that is? And they would share with one another. And the body would be mutually encouraged. With a group this size, I know that each and every single week there's something going on in your life, whether it's big or small, where you see God's faithfulness, when you see the answering of God, when you see the moving of God. Share it with us. Share it with someone that's close. Bless others in that. And here's the last thing that helps me. And it kind of ties in with everything. We journal, we keep reminders, we share faithfulness stories to one another. It all ties in because for me, it's an each and every single day battle. Meaning that every single moment that I'm awake, each and every single day that I start my day, if I don't start it with that mindset, then that day becomes very difficult for me to remember. And I share this in our prayer times and when we have, different things when we gather together to pray. And I say, if you have addictions, if you have certain things that you're trying to quit, if you don't prepare yourself first thing in the morning, right? If you're not in the mindset to say, I'm going to fight this, give up this addiction or whatever, you're not going to win that battle that day. You can't just say, oh, I remember praying about this one thing last week and then I'm going to be good for the next week. You can't come with that kind of understanding. It's got to be each and every single day. Every single moment that I awake, some of the first things that I try to do is remember the previous day's faithfulness of God. Every single morning, I say, God, remind me of one thing. Whether it's something that was yesterday, something that was last week, something that happened 2 years ago, just help me remember, reminisce about that one thing. Because brothers and sisters, our past is so intricately tied with our future. Because when you know where you're coming from, you know where you can go. You know if when God has been faithful and He's been showing it to you in your entire life, when you look back at it, you have the courage to look forward. Because you know that the gifts of God will not run out. Because it's not about gifts, religion of miracles. It is a religion of a relationship, a communion, and a fellowship with God. And this fellowship, this relationship will never end. And the reason why I've told you that it was a turning point is because starting from the end of chapter 8, Jesus will prove that to you. He'll say, are you worried about my gifts running out? If you realize it's about a relationship with me, let me demonstrate to you how my love for you will never end. Because starting from chapter 8, He's going to show us, I'm going to die. I'm going to give up my life so that my relationship, my fellowship with you may be forever. And this is the turning point. And this is where Jesus is saying, please understand, before I get to this amazing story of the gospel about Jesus giving His life up for us. Because if you don't understand it's about a relationship with God, then you'll hear the gospel story, you'll hear the message of Jesus dying on the cross, and it will go through one ear and out the other. It won't mean anything to you and me. But if you understand it's the reason that Jesus dies is so that we can forever be in relationship. That we can forever experience Jesus. And that we never have to worry about not being in His presence. And you will hear the story of Jesus' amazing suffering. And it will change your life forever. Let's pray.